quality of our lives is directly related to the quality of our relationships. Most importantly, starting with the relationship you have with yourself.
Hi, my name is Giovanna, and on this channel, I'm going to show you how the communication and connection you have with yourself and your inner world directly impact the relationships, the connection, and the success you have in your outer world, in every area of your life.
Hi, my name is Giovanna, and welcome to another video here on the Connection Code. Today we're going to dive into two things that you must be mindful of when having a conversation with someone else. So let's dive right into it. So the very first thing we want to be mindful of is the energy we are giving off. And so when we talk about giving off energy, this can include leaking energy, projecting energy, vomiting our energy, having intrusive energy, offering energizing energy or inviting energy, having authentic energy, or even guarded energy. And so there's so many different ways that we can give off energy when we are in the presence of someone else. And so it's so important for us to be mindful of how we show up in a conversation when we are interacting with anyone. And this can be with family, with friends, with colleagues, with our intimate partners, even with complete strangers. We always want to be very conscious and very aware of the energy we are giving off. So let's dive even deeper into this and really understand, what does it mean? What are all these different types of energies that we can give off? And how does this essentially impact our relationships with others and either help us to connect deeper or to potentially create disconnection amongst people? So I want to dive into a few of these types of energies that I expressed. That way we can actually understand, what do they really mean? So the first one, when I talk about leaking energy, and what that really means is that oftentimes when we go into a conversation, when we start an interaction with someone, we already show up in a certain state. And so that can mean that we've already shown up maybe frustrated from work, or exhausted from our day, or angry, or it could even be that we're leaking sexual energy and we're very hungry, let's say. And so all of that actually shows up in our energy field, and we project that outwards to other people when we are leaking our energy. So we want to be really mindful when we show up in a conversation, in the presence of someone else. How are we presenting? And are we coming with our whole baggage of emotions coming into that conversation that's now leaking through our energy field, where other people can unconsciously feel it or not? So when we are aware of how we are emotionally showing up in a conversation, even prior to the conversation starting, then we can be very intentional about what it is that we actually want the other person to feel in our presence. And so if we don't want them to absorb that anger or that frustration or even potentially that sexual energy, then we have to be very mindful of our own state, our own emotional state, prior to even conversing, prior to giving off this energy and interacting with other people. On the contrary, you could go into a conversation being extremely excited, and maybe you want to share that energy with someone. And so long as you're conscious of that, then it's wonderful. But we always want to be mindful, what is the energy we are leaking that is actually going out of our energetic field and into somebody else's? And do we really want them to absorb that energy and to experience those same emotions that we are? Because at the end of the day, we always want to remember that we leave people feeling a certain way when they're in our presence. And so you really have to ask yourself and be mindful, how do I want this person to feel when they are in my company? And do I want to leak this energy, this emotional state onto them? I now want to dive into intrusive energy and vomiting energy. And what I really mean by these things, and let's first talk about vomiting energy. Oftentimes when we are with someone, what I like to say, people will often word vomit, or their actions will be that of almost like irrational vomiting of behavior. And so, in very simple terms, it really looks like someone just opening up their mouth or taking an action without really considering the aftermath or the repercussions of those words and those actions. And so, when people are vomiting energy, when we are vomiting our energy onto others, that can in the long term actually have an impact on people if we don't choose our words and our behavior wisely. So we really want to be mindful. Are we vomiting our energy onto other people? Because that actually can be the very thing that creates disconnection amongst two people if we say things that can be hurtful or if we do things that can be hurtful towards others. The second thing is having intrusive energy. And often this looks like intruding or invading upon someone's space. And this really means not being aware of people's boundaries. And so sometimes it can really show up being a physical thing where you're very close to someone and you're very much in their physical space. But it can also be intrusion of, your energy, intrusion of your words. And so if we're intruding into someone's space, we're not really allowing them to have the space that they need, and perhaps we're pushing their boundaries. So we really want to be mindful as well. Are we intruding onto someone's physical and energetic space? And as well, are we vomiting in that space, in that arena, and giving off that sort of energy? And these are two things that can actually create someone to sort of pull back, to, turn inwards, to pull away, to close off. And this will actually, in the long term, create disconnection amongst us rather than forming those deep connections in a conversation. I want to finally mention in this arena of the energy in which we give off, the difference between safe and welcoming energy versus unsafe and guarded. And so when we are living into that guarded, standoffish, cold, closed, reserved, disinterested, snobby, superficial, unwelcoming, dry, arrogant, fake type of energy, what we're really doing is creating, once again, this disconnection. And we're really telling someone, you're not necessarily safe in this space. I'm not necessarily authentic or real as a person, therefore you may or may not be able to trust me. And so it leads people to perhaps shutting down or retracting, pulling away, or not completely feeling as if they can entirely open up to you and share with you about who they are truly as a person. So we want to be mindful that people can actually feel our energy. And so when we are guarded, when we are closed, when we are standoffish, when we're hunched over and not allowing someone into our space, then we are really telling someone that they cannot necessarily feel safe with us, or that this is not a place to fully open up for whatever reason, and therefore people won't. On the contrary, you can have safe space, safe energy, welcoming, warm, open, caring, authentic, genuine, real, humble energy that you give off. And so when people feel like they're talking to someone that is real, that is authentic, that's also open to sharing, that their body is open, their energy field is open, their whole essence is open, then very instinctually and naturally, without people even being conscious of it, they too will open up to you. And that actually leads to deeper and deeper connections over time, and it leads to more and more sharing amongst people. So we really want to be mindful. Are we projecting and giving off this very open, welcoming, come share with me type energy? Or are we more guarded and closed and perhaps judgmental or superficial, in which case people won't necessarily feel that they can be real with you and that they can be open? And so when we are mindful of this difference of the energy in which we're showing and projecting and releasing into their conversations, into these interactions with others, this will entirely change the whole dynamic, the whole game of how that conversation will play out with someone. So, the second thing that we must be mindful of when having a conversation with someone else is the energy that we receive or absorb from others. So, first, we are talking about the energy we give off. Now, we are talking about the energy in which we receive or absorb. And so, anytime that we go into a conversation, that we have that interaction with other people, we are actually taking on a degree of their energy and we are interacting with their energy field as well. And so we want to be very mindful of how much of that we choose to absorb, how much of that we choose to let in, what are our boundaries. Are we setting firm boundaries, in which case we choose exactly what emotions from others we will allow into our space and which ones we will choose not to take on because perhaps they don't serve our higher self? So, just to go a bit deeper into this concept, people themselves show up in a conversation with their own energy, their own emotions, their own thoughts and beliefs, and everything that happened to them throughout the day up until that point that you two are talking. And so they come into the conversation with that degree of energy. And so you want to now be very mindful, very conscious yourself of how their energy is impacting your emotional state, your mental state, your physical state, and your energetic state, and whether their emotions and what they are energetically projecting outwards, whether that is impacting you in a positive sense that it's fueling up your energy and energizing you, it's filling up your cup, or whether it's actually draining your cup and taking the energy and life out of you. And so the more and more we become mindful of this when we're having conversations with other people, the more we can actually become aware of how much of that interaction with that person or that group of people or in that environment was actually beneficial for us. Do we want to repeat it? Did it feel good for our higher self, for our better self? Or is it something that perhaps we could learn from or do not wish to repeat because we constantly feel drained when in the company of that person or those people or in that environment? So, the more we become conscious of the energy that we're actually absorbing and receiving and taking on, the more we can become intentional about who it is that we wish to keep company with. And whether that company we keep is once again serving our greater higher self or whether it's actually draining us over consecutive periods of time. So, I want to leave you guys with two final tips that you can integrate into your everyday life. That way, you can be mindful of the energy you give off and also the energy you receive. So, starting with the energy that you give off, you want to be mindful of the state that you are in when you are entering into a conversation. And if that state does not look like the type of energy you want to give to somebody else, if you feel frustrated or stressed or anxious and you do not want to project that energy onto somebody else in a conversation, then I would suggest doing certain techniques that I call changing your state. And so it's really a matter of being aware of what can change your energetic state quickly. For some people, it's doing exercise. Other people, it's journaling. Some people, it's going for a long walk or meditating or putting on music and really getting into that zone. Maybe it's doing something creative like playing the guitar or doing art. Whatever it may be that you're aware of that can shift your emotions quickly, that can change your state, perhaps it's best to do that and to exercise those things first before going into the conversation and bringing all of that energy with you that you don't want the other person to essentially absorb. The second tip, and this one is more for absorbing energy of other people. And so, what is a really good technique that you can do for yourself? Is that you can actually imagine, and if you even physically want, to put a bubble of light around you. And just imagine that you've protected yourself, and you can even signal to your unconscious mind that you will not allow anything that does not serve your higher self to come into this space, to enter into this bubble. And so anything that is good for your greater higher self, then you allow it in. And anything that's not will not allow to penetrate through this bubble or these walls. And so even in the morning, you can wake up and start your day by saying, I allow in beautiful energy that ignites me, that serves me, and I do not allow in energy that is not good for my greater, higher self. And that way, you're actually programming your unconscious mind to start attracting people that serve you, people that energize you, and to really then be mindful and conscious of the people that don't necessarily do that. Therefore, you don't necessarily spend so much time around them, and you don't allow their energy to penetrate into your own field. So these are just a few tips, simple techniques that you can apply into your everyday life. That way you become more mindful of the energy you're giving off and also the energy you're absorbing. And these two things will be life changers in your interactions and your conversations with others. And they're the very thing that will actually help you get that one step closer to building these deeper connections with people every day. Okay, so I hear you, and you're probably saying, yeah, but Giovanna, what if I'm like in that moment right now? What if I'm in that conversation right now and I'm not in a good place or they're not in a good place? Then what do I do? And I would say one very simple technique and a very quick technique is breath work. And this really involves just connecting in with the breath and doing, a very gentle inhale and really allowing the air to expand through your belly, and an exhale and contract from your belly. And you can sneak off to the bathroom and even just do what I call fire breath, or a slower type of breath, even a Wim Hof breath if you're all familiar with this. And this can change your state almost instantly. Or you can even do it in the moment while you're having a conversation with someone, very subtly just connecting in with the breath and feeling your body calm itself. If you don't like the energy that was projected onto you, even after walking away from a certain social setting, you can do a very gentle Reiki technique where you're really just cleaning the energy off your body and letting it go. Once again, you can even sneak off into the bathroom and just do that and let it all go. Or even when you go home at the end of the night, I do this myself. If I feel like I absorbed a lot of energy around me, I will just do a good old shake off and let all that energy release that's not mine from my body. So these are very simple things you guys can apply into your everyday. These techniques will really essentially change the whole dynamic of how you communicate and connect with others. I just want to thank you all for being here with me today. I trust that you all took away something helpful and useful from today's video. I ask that you leave comments below. I love comments. Subscribe, ring the bell for more notifications when I release my videos every week. And I look forward to connecting with you all. Shoot me a message, reach out. I love to chat with new people, and leave any sort of ideas about what you would love for me to talk about in upcoming videos with you. So I send you all off to have a beautiful day ahead, and I look forward to seeing you next week on the Connection Code.